what is creativity? What was my idea the other day about what is creativity? Creativity is something about taking the available material and combining those available elements in new ways.
So taking what's there and just using it in new ways.
Because otherwise, creativity is about generating something from nothing, right? That's the kind of blank page. Creativity is a kind of rupture, it's a new break, it's something completely unrecognisable. Whereas I think creativity is about it's about the shock of recognising the familiar in something completely strange.
I think creativity is something that's original and unique and different to a normal convention or aspect of media which is generally considered samey, something like that.
I think creativity is when someone makes something complex and vibrant that's obvious to the audience that they enjoy doing it.
It's about freedom of expression.
Creativity means something different to everybody, and I would measure it by an individual's interpretation to represent something in a way that would influence the average person or impact upon that person in some way.
It's something original, something like different, something out of context maybe.
Can't get it into words.
I think creativity is the ability to look at something from a different point of view, or even just have your own take on somebody else's point of view. So you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel, but you might just think of a different way of pushing the wheel along.
To my mind, creativity is about encouraging kids to use metacognition.
Creativity is something that's original and unique.
Being creative means to me expressing yourself in like a practical way.
I think being creative is being artistic and like having passion for what you're doing and stuff.
Having a good imagination, maybe.
I think an example of creativity is the Skoda advert with the cake.
I think the cake-shaped Skoda car advert is very creative because it grabs your attention in a unique and fun, hungry kind of way.
Well, I think the Skoda advert is creative because of how it must have taken them to make the cake and how big it is. I mean, they made it into a car, so that's quite cool.
The biggest problem has always been how do you recognise, identify and assess higher order thinking in my mind. You can show it by outcomes.
So how do you think you do assess it?
I guess first thing would be, why do we need to assess the creativity? Is that really what's being asked? Who you're assessing creativity for? I think there's a difference between candidates must be able to use the equipment creatively. Candidates must be able to use the available, what I'm trying to get this idea of kind of the available kind of repertoire of images, styles, things that they can work with creatively.
So is it more to do with being appropriate in your creativity? Are we saying it's pointless trying to assess creativity? So what are we looking for? Are we just simply looking for technical proficiency?
Well, you can teach technical skills, can't you?
We would hope that the work kind of takes on a life of its own.
What it's done is made me think about where I can be looking for ideas.
Yeah.
What's the value of working with other people?
Grading someone on creativity depends on how different their work is and whether they use enough material within it.
I would grade someone's work on the thought and processes of behind it and then how they used to show it across to the audience.
So if you had visual creativity, you judge it on like what it looks like and stuff, obviously. But if you had like sound, it could be like the way it's edited or distorted.
If I was to grade someone on creativity, I'd probably look for unoriginality and different styles within something. So something different to what you'd normally see in like on Hollywood or BBC.
Probably on how original the idea is.
something that's targeting like a different market, something that stands out more.
How would I mark creativity? In honesty, I really don't think I could.
I think it's too subjective, and I don't know that it can necessarily be assessed unless it's measured against a set criteria in its development and creation.
It's very much down to interpretation, and therefore it is very, very hard to define.
I suppose probably if you had to define it, to mark it, it would probably be whether they had managed to use things in an unusual fashion, whether they had managed to use as many of the different facilities open to them to convey a message, whether they'd thought of unusual messages in the context that they can portray, and that would probably be about as much as I could do, really. The actual idea, I don't think I could.
On how different their work is and whether they use enough material within it.
I would grade someone's work on the thought and processes of behind it, and then how they used to share it across the audience.
Probably be on how original the idea is. Something that's targeting like a different market, something that stands out more.
Probably look for unoriginality and different styles within something, so something different to what you'd normally see.
The grading criteria helps.
It's incredibly hard to quantify a discernible outcome sometimes of creativity.
How you judge how somebody else sees the world is very different. So how I see the world might be one way, and as such my interpretation might be creative to me, but to somebody else that might be how they see the world anyway, so they might look at it and go, that's not creative, that's just common sense.
I would have thought by definition itself it's very difficult to quantify, except for, like I said, by saying that top grades will go to the unexpected creative elements that are produced by an individual.
It is easier to assess the product.
It's an individual's interpretation of something.
There are several, to my mind, competing, contrasting discourses around what creativity is. You could argue it from almost like a left-wing or perhaps a holistic, humanistic stance, which sees it as perhaps problem-solving in its purest form. Family-based, you could see it as being societally based to improve the material and emotional and social well-being of people.
That society restricts people to a certain degree.
It's this very consumerist approach in most people, and as such they demand the results of creativity as long as it's cheap, reliable, and probably, and to be fair, I've done it, I've gone looking for a second-hand car before, and providing it works, like I want the product, I don't necessarily want to buy into, and so this is a fault of mine as well, I don't necessarily want to buy into the idea that I have to pay heed to the whole process, or the fact that that process has taken time and maybe unpredictable. I want a predictable outcome. So maybe that's a telling sign that perhaps all of us, we've still bought into the consumerist model.
Creativity.
It's that extra something.
It's original.
Something complex and vibrant that
stands out more.
It's the ability to look at something from a different point of view.
That would influence the average person or impact upon that person in some way.